I knew something was off the moment I walked into the living room and saw my wife jump like I'd fired a gun behind her. It wasn't the kind of startled reaction you get when someone unexpectedly walks into a room. It was more like a guilt-ridden jolt, like when you know you're doing something wrong and you just got caught. She was on the laptop, sitting in the exact spot where I always sit, and the screen shut so fast I swear I heard the trackpad crack a little. She stood up too quickly, her face plastered with a smile that didn't even come close to her eyes, and she asked how my day had gone like she genuinely cared, which she hadn't done in months. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at the laptop, then at her, and she knew I saw it. That flicker of panic in her expression was more honest than anything she'd said to me in weeks. "Amanda," I said, slowly walking toward the couch, "what were you doing?" She laughed too loudly, too quickly, and waved her hand like she was shooing away a dumb question. "Just shopping for your birthday," she said, and then added, "You're not supposed to see it." That was the first moment I knew. I didn't have proof yet, but my gut knew. Something had shifted. Her tone didn't match her words, her body didn't match her tone. Everything about that moment was wrong, and I let it slide because I wanted to believe it was nothing. I kissed her cheek, went upstairs, and waited until she left to pick up wine for dinner. As soon as I heard the front door shut, I went back down, turned on the laptop, and waited to see if she really was just shopping. The laptop opened to the login screen. She never logged out. Ever. We shared it for years. But there it was, password required. I didn't try to crack it. I didn't care about passwords or detective work. What got me was that she had decided to lock me out of something we'd always shared. And that told me more than enough. The next few days, I watched. I didn't snoop, I observed. I noticed the way she'd take the laptop upstairs now, how she flinched when I came into the room, how she closed the lid before going to the kitchen even if she was just away for a second. I started playing dumb. I pretended like I didn't notice when she left the house dressed way nicer than her usual grocery run look. I nodded along when she said she was staying late for a client call even though I knew her office didn't do after-hours meetings on Fridays. And then came the real test. One afternoon, I told her I had a job out of town, said I'd be gone for 2 nights. She didn't ask for details. Didn't ask which town, which client, nothing. She just said, "Okay," and kissed me like she was already somewhere else in her head. I didn't leave, though. I parked my truck 3 blocks away and walked back to the house a few hours later. She wasn't home. No car in the driveway. I climbed up to the treehouse I built in our backyard 2 summers ago, an actual, working adult-sized treehouse I made because Amanda said she'd always dreamed of one as a kid. I sat there in the corner, behind the lattice walls, and I waited like an idiot in a spy movie. An hour later, her car rolled into the driveway. She got out, not in yoga pants and a hoodie, but in a short dress, heels, and makeup. Full-on makeup. I hadn't seen her wear lipstick in months. She walked to the front door, looked over her shoulder twice, and went inside. I waited. I waited because I needed to know if someone else would follow her. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I was about to climb down, figuring I'd wasted my time, when I saw movement near the back fence. The gate opened. A guy came in. Not a delivery guy, not a friend, not someone with any hesitation. He walked like he belonged. He walked like this wasn't the first time. He was tall, wearing jeans and a white button-down shirt, and he held a 6-pack in one hand like he'd just left work, and this was his Friday routine. He didn't even knock. He walked right through the back door like he lived there. My hands were shaking, but I didn't move. I wanted to see how far this would go, even if it destroyed me. What I saw through the window made my stomach turn. Amanda met him in the kitchen. She didn't flinch, didn't whisper. She laughed, really laughed, that same laugh I hadn't heard in our house for over a year. Then she kissed him. Not a quick peck, not something shy. She kissed him like I didn't exist. Like our 10 years together were a thing she shook off every time he touched her. I stayed in that treehouse until after midnight. I watched the lights go off. I saw them disappear into the bedroom I built a custom headboard for with my own hands. I saw the flicker of the TV. I imagined every single betrayal unfolding behind the closed door. When he left in the morning, slipping out like a rat, I climbed down, walked around to the front, and went back into my own home. Amanda was in the shower, humming. She didn't even lock the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, stared at my hands, and thought, now I know. Now what? But I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. That came next. The next morning, Amanda acted like it was just another Saturday. She made pancakes, humming like she hadn't spent the night with someone else in our bed. I watched her pour syrup on the plate like she hadn't been wrapped up in another man's arms just hours ago. It was surreal, how calm she looked, how easily she played the role. I sat across from her at the table, chewing each bite like it might help me forget what I saw. I didn't speak much. She filled the silence with small talk about the neighbor's new dog and a funny video her coworker sent her. I nodded, pretended to laugh at the right moments, and stared at the woman I thought I knew, realizing she could lie without even blinking. After breakfast, she said she had to run errands. I watched her get dressed again, this time in something more casual, leggings, oversized sweatshirt, messy bun. The kind of outfit she used to wear when we'd spend lazy weekends together, back when she gave a damn about being with me. She kissed me goodbye on the cheek, called me babe, and left without asking if I wanted to come along. That's when I knew this wasn't a one-time mistake or some emotional mistake she'd cry over. This was a pattern, a routine. She had a whole other life, and I was just a placeholder in the one she showed the world. I didn't follow her this time. I didn't need to. I already knew. Instead, I grabbed her laptop while she was gone. I took my time. She'd made the password obvious enough, our anniversary date, of all things. As if I wouldn't notice. As if I wouldn't eventually look. When it opened, I saw it all. Emails, chats, calendar invites that didn't match the work hours she told me about. I opened a folder labeled Work Resources and found a bunch of saved files that had nothing to do with marketing, screenshots of texts, pictures of hotel room doors, even a few videos of her talking to the guy. She saved all of it like it was a memory album. I clicked on one of the videos. It was her in the car, camera on selfie mode, laughing as she told him she couldn't wait to feel his hands on her again. She said his name, Greg, and she said it with the kind of softness she hadn't used with me in a long time. She said she felt alive again. That one hit the hardest. Not because it was some romantic speech, but because it was so casual. Like I didn't even exist. Like 10 years meant nothing. I stopped the video, closed the laptop, and just sat there. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move for a while. I just sat in the silence of our house, our kitchen, our life that had just crumbled. I don't know how long I sat there before I stood up and walked to the garage. I opened a storage bin we hadn't touched in years, the one with all our old vacation stuff. I found the photo album from our honeymoon. I flipped through it, her in a sundress on the beach, me trying to take a selfie with a coconut drink, both of us looking stupidly happy. I took one of the photos out, held it up to the light, then dropped it into the trash can without even thinking. When Amanda came back, I was already back in the living room, TV on, pretending to watch a documentary. She dropped the shopping bags in the hallway and smiled at me. "I got that thing you like for dinner tonight," she said, walking past me like everything was normal. I looked at her, forced a smile, and said, "Thanks." She walked upstairs. I stared at the TV screen, not seeing any of it, and thought about what came next. I knew I couldn't sit in silence anymore. I couldn't play dumb and wait for her to give me some half-baked excuse when she eventually got caught. I needed to hear it from her. I needed her to say it out loud. That night, I waited until we were both in bed. She was scrolling through her phone like she always did, laughing softly at some meme or tweet, her back turned slightly toward me. I stared at the ceiling for a while, then said her name. "Amanda." She turned slowly. "Yeah," she said, voice light, like we were about to talk about which show to binge next. I looked at her and asked, "Who's Greg?" She froze. It wasn't even subtle. Her hand stopped moving. The glow from her phone screen lit up her face, and I saw every part of her expression change in a split second. Her eyes darted to me, then back to her screen. "What do you mean?" she asked, already on the defensive. I sat up, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "Don't pretend." I saw the videos, the pictures, the messages. I know. There was a long pause. Her mouth opened, then closed. She put the phone down on her lap and just stared at me. No tears, no gasps, no shouting. Just silence. Then finally, she said, "How long have you known?" I didn't answer. That was her job now. She needed to speak. She needed to stop hiding behind her fake smiles and bullshit stories. She looked down at her hands, then back at me, and said, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." That was the first thing she said that felt real. And I knew this wasn't going to be some clean, simple story. There was more, and I was going to hear every bit of it. I sat back, arms crossed, and said, "Start talking." She didn't speak right away. Amanda stared at the blanket pulled up to her knees like she was trying to think of how to word something she knew would never sound right no matter how carefully she put it. I waited, not because I was being patient, but because I wanted her to feel the pressure of silence, the kind that forces people to be honest or at least say something. Finally, she looked at me and said, It started in February. Her voice was low, steady. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even shaking. We met through work. He's a client. His company hired us for a branding campaign, and we hit it off during the meetings. I let her continue, because if I interrupted now, I knew I wouldn't stop. He was funny, easy to talk to, and I didn't think anything of it at first. But the more we worked together, the more I looked forward to his emails and calls. And then we started texting after hours. She looked up at me like that detail alone should soften the blow. I didn't flinch. I kept my arms crossed and stared at her like I was looking through her. "Did you sleep with him?" I asked. She closed her eyes, let out a slow breath, and nodded. "A few times," she said. "At first, it was just flirting, but then we met up after work one night, and it just happened." I repeated her words back to her, slowly and without emotion. "It just happened." She winced, but didn't take it back. I wasn't planning on it. It wasn't like I was unhappy and looking for someone else. I cut her off. "Stop saying it just happened. You planned it. You scheduled meetings. You invited him into our house when you thought I was gone. That's not something that just happens." Amanda sat back against the headboard, pulled her knees up, and held them like she was trying to shrink herself into the smallest possible version of the person who betrayed me. "You're right," she said, her voice quieter now. "I made decisions. I chose to keep going even when I knew it was wrong. I didn't stop." She paused, then added, "I thought about telling you so many times, but every time I looked at you, I felt like the worst person on earth. And I still do." I leaned forward slightly and asked, "Then why did you keep doing it?" She looked up at me again, and this time her face showed something closer to anger than guilt. "Because I felt invisible, Tom. Because for the past year, it's like we were living parallel lives in the same house. You were always working, always tired. We stopped going anywhere, stopped touching each other. I'd come home, and you'd be in the garage or buried in some estimate or glued to your phone. I was lonely." I didn't let her finish. "So instead of talking to me, you went to someone else. Instead of saying, 'Hey, I feel ignored,' you climbed into bed with another man. You took what we had and treated it like it was disposable." My voice cracked, not from sadness, but from how tightly I was holding myself back. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking this was just a heated argument. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she had done, calmly and clearly. "I didn't think you cared anymore," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. "You shut down months ago. I try to talk and you'd nod or give one-word answers. You never noticed when I dressed up, never asked how my day was. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. But don't act like you were some perfect husband who did everything right." I stood up then, not because I was leaving, but because I couldn't sit next to her any longer. "You don't get to shift this on to me. I'm not perfect, but I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't drag someone into our house, into our life, and then pretend everything was fine. You did that." Amanda got up too, now standing on the opposite side of the bed, like we were two people trying to occupy the same space but couldn't even breathe the same air. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," she said, "and I'm not asking for it. I just want you to understand that it wasn't about Greg. It was about me trying to feel like I mattered again." I stared at her, trying to process the words, trying to figure out if anything she said changed how I felt. "It didn't. You could have told me," I said. "You could have said you were struggling. You could have said you were unhappy. Instead, you lied to my face, every single day, and made me feel crazy for noticing." She didn't reply. There was nothing else to say. I grabbed a pillow and a blanket and walked out of the room without looking back. That night, I slept on the couch for the first time in our marriage. I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking about every moment we'd shared in this house. Every fight, every laugh, every dinner, every weekend trip. All of it felt tainted now, like it was part of some story that didn't end the way I thought it would. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, waiting for morning, knowing things would never be the same. The next morning, I didn't wait for Amanda to wake up. I grabbed my keys, got in my truck, and drove around with no destination. The streets were quiet, and I just needed the space to think. Not about what she said or whether she felt sorry. That didn't matter anymore. I wasn't interested in her apologies or her reasons. What I kept thinking about was how she brought him into our home, into my space, the place I spent years building piece by piece. Every chair, every table, every cabinet in that house passed through my hands. And she walked around that house like it didn't matter, like none of it meant anything, like I didn't exist. That was the part that kept clawing at me. It wasn't just about sex. It was about being erased. By the time I got back, she was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee like she hadn't shattered everything. She looked up when I came in, expecting a fight, maybe even a conversation. I gave her neither. I walked past her, grabbed a notebook from the drawer, and went into the garage. That notebook had been for job estimates, designs, budgets. Now I was using it for something else. Over the next 2 days, I stopped sleeping in the house. I came home late, showered, changed clothes, then left again without a word. I didn't tell her where I was going, didn't ask her anything, didn't even look at her unless I had to. She tried talking once, asked if I wanted to sit down and talk like adults. I told her, I'm not interested in talking to someone who lies for fun, and walked out. She didn't try again. I called a lawyer. Not one of those friendly family lawyers either. I asked around, found someone known for being aggressive, and made an appointment. When I explained the situation, he didn't even blink. He told me exactly what I needed to gather. Documentation, proof of infidelity, texts, pictures, timeline. He gave me a checklist. I already had most of it. That same day, I opened a new bank account and transferred my half of everything. I wasn't going to leave myself exposed while she sat there pretending to be remorseful. Later that week, while she was out, probably doing whatever she needed to cope, I copied everything from her laptop to a flash drive and delivered it to my lawyer. I didn't ask for legal revenge because I was angry. I asked because I wanted control back. This was my life too. She didn't get to rewrite it and walk away without consequences. But legal steps weren't the only thing I planned. Amanda had one real vulnerability, something she kept tighter than anything else: her image. She curated everything: her Instagram, her work relationships, even the way she presented our marriage to people. Always smiling, always supportive, always lucky to have found her person. I decided to take that away. Not out of cruelty, but because she deserved to face the damage she caused. I printed screenshots. Not just the steamy ones, but the conversations where she talked about how bored she was with me, how I didn't have ambition anymore, how she only stayed because it was easier than starting over. I included pictures, dates, call logs, everything. I put it all in a plain folder and mailed it anonymously to 2 people, her boss and her sister. Her boss needed to know because some of those texts were during work hours, from company devices. Her sister needed to know because she was always the one praising Amanda for having the perfect marriage and using us as some kind of benchmark. I didn't write a letter or try to explain anything. The facts spoke for themselves. A day later, Amanda stormed into the garage while I was cutting wood for a job. She slammed the folder down in front of me. "What the hell is this?" she yelled, her voice tight and cracking. I looked at her and said, "Evidence." She shook her head like she didn't believe I could actually go that far. "You sent this to my job?" she asked, disbelief and anger mixing on her face. I shrugged. "You didn't seem too worried about your job when you were doing all this." She stood there, breathing heavy, then finally said, "You're trying to ruin me." I wiped the sawdust from my hands and looked her straight in the eye. "No, Amanda. You did that on your own. I'm just making sure the right people know who you really are." She didn't respond. She picked up the folder, turned around, and left the garage without another word. I didn't follow her. That night, she didn't come home. I didn't care where she went. I took the time to box up her things: clothes, shoes, bathroom junk, all of it. I didn't throw anything away. I wasn't trying to be petty. I just wanted her gone. I left the boxes in the hallway, took the extra key off her ring, and put it on the counter. The house felt cleaner that way. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a step toward it. The next morning, I called my lawyer again and said, "I'm ready to file." He said he'd start the process immediately. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. That was the first moment I felt like I could breathe again. Not because things were fixed, but because they were finally moving forward. I didn't care how she reacted anymore. I didn't care what her friends thought, or what story she would tell to save face. I knew the truth. I'd seen it, heard it, lived it. And now she would too. It took 3 days before she came back. I didn't ask where she'd been or who she stayed with, and she didn't offer. When she walked through the door, her hair was messy, her eyes swollen, and she looked like someone who had been forced to live without the version of life she had carefully maintained for too long. She didn't say hello. She stood in the doorway and asked, "Can we talk?" I was in the kitchen, eating leftovers I didn't care about, more out of habit than hunger. I nodded once, slowly, not because I was ready, but because I knew the end needed a proper finish. She sat across from me, not at the edge like she was preparing to leave, but fully, like she was bracing for something solid. We sat there for a full minute before either of us spoke. And even then, the silence felt louder than anything that would follow. "I got a call from HR," she said, staring at her hands. "They're reviewing the situation. It's not about Greg. It's about conduct, boundaries, professionalism." I didn't respond. I didn't care about her job anymore. I didn't care about Greg either. She could have lost everything, and it wouldn't have changed the fact that I had already lost what mattered to me. She cleared her throat and added, "My sister won't return my texts. She called me a coward. She told me I threw away a family for some pathetic fling." Still, I didn't respond. I wasn't going to carry her guilt for her. She wanted to talk, so I waited for her to finally say what this conversation was supposed to be about. She looked up at me and said, "I want to know what you're going to do. What we're going to do. I know I ruined everything. I know you hate me right now. But I need to know if there's a version of this where we try to fix it." That was the moment I finally allowed myself to look at her directly, not with disgust or sadness, but with clarity. I told her, "I already filed. Papers are in motion. You'll get served by the end of next week." She flinched like I'd hit her, but I didn't care. She deserved the truth, and I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. She leaned back, her breath shaky, and whispered, "So that's it? 10 years, and it just ends like that?" I shook my head slowly. "It didn't end today, Amanda. It ended when you made the decision to lie to me over and over. It ended when you walked someone into our bedroom and then looked me in the eye the next day like nothing happened. I didn't end this. You did. I'm just finally following through." For a moment, she looked like she was about to cry, but no tears came. Instead, she leaned forward and said, "I know I can't fix what I did. I'm not asking you to forget. But I didn't expect you to go this far this fast." I pushed my plate away and rested my elbows on the table. "You thought I'd sit here and wait? That I'd sleep on the couch for another few months while you figured out what part of your double life you wanted to keep?" She started to protest, but I cut her off. "You treated me like a placeholder, Amanda. You didn't just cheat. You erased me from your world while I was still living in it." She didn't argue with that. She nodded, just once, and that was the closest thing I got to an apology. I stood up and said, "I'll move out by the end of the week. This house is yours, legally, and I don't want it. I've already got a place lined up. Small, but clean. Close to work." She looked up at me, surprised. "You're leaving me the house?" I laughed once, bitterly. "You built your new life inside these walls. Seems fair to leave you with it." I started walking away, but she stood up and said, "Wait." I stopped but didn't turn around. "Can I ask you something?" she said. I nodded. "Do you still love me?" I stayed quiet for a second longer than I should have, because the answer wasn't simple, even if it should have been. I turned my head slightly and said, "I don't know who you are anymore. Maybe I never did." That was all I had left. I didn't say goodbye, didn't offer her a hug or a second glance. I walked into the hallway, grabbed my jacket, and left the house. That night, I drove to the new place and sat in the empty living room on the floor. No furniture yet, no photos, no sound except for the occasional car passing outside. I looked around the plain white walls and realized I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt hollow, yes, but also strangely weightless. Like I wasn't dragging the past behind me for once. I laid down on the floor and closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to finally stop thinking. Tomorrow, I would start again, whether I wanted to or not. The apartment was quiet, and I found myself getting used to the silence faster than I expected. There were no footsteps down the hallway, no low murmurs from the bathroom, no clinking of coffee cups in the morning. I thought I would miss those things more, but the truth was that I didn't. I didn't miss Amanda's routines or her noise or even her presence. What I missed was the version of life I thought I had, the one I kept holding on to even as it slipped away one lie at a time. I spent the first few mornings waking up on a mattress on the floor, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I let so much slide, wondering if I'd ever truly seen her for who she was or if I had just been clinging to the comfort of what I wanted her to be. The hardest part wasn't losing her, it was accepting how long I let myself be fooled. Work kept me sane. I threw myself into every project I had and took on new ones just to fill the time. I stayed late, drove further than necessary, and avoided anything that looked like reflection. I stopped checking her social media, stopped asking mutual friends about her, stopped wondering what she was doing or who she was doing it with. I let her name slip from my vocabulary unless it was with the lawyer or when signing papers. I gave myself permission to stop caring, even if I wasn't sure I was fully there yet. But every day it got easier. I didn't wake up angry anymore. I didn't feel that tightness in my chest when I thought about the house or the nights she stayed out or the lies she told. What I felt was space, and that was something I hadn't felt in years. One night, about 3 weeks after I moved out, she texted me. It was late, almost midnight. Just one line, "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a while. I didn't delete it right away. I didn't respond either. I just watched the screen, thinking about what she could possibly have left to say. I didn't want closure. I already had it. I didn't want answers. I knew them. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. That was the first night I slept the full 8 hours since the day I found out about her and Greg. That silence was better than anything she could have said. The divorce finalized 2 weeks after that. No court drama. No drawn-out arguments. The documents arrived in the mail, signed and stamped, and just like that, it was over. I dropped them in a drawer and didn't look at them again. My lawyer called to follow up, but I didn't have questions. There was nothing else I needed from the process. It had already done what I wanted. It separated me from her completely. I didn't want to keep anything. I didn't ask for the furniture, the house, the car, or any of the things we bought together. Those things meant nothing now. She could have them. I wanted peace. I started seeing people again after 2 months. Not dating, just coffee, drinks, small talk with people I met through friends or job sites. I didn't tell them about Amanda. If they asked, I just said I got divorced recently, kept it short. I didn't want to drag anyone into the past. That part of my life was closed. There was nothing romantic or tragic left in it. It was just a finished chapter. Some of the women I met were nice, easy to talk to, but I didn't push anything. I didn't want anything serious yet. I wanted to learn how to live on my own first, figure out who I was without the title of husband attached to my name. I needed to understand what I liked, what I wanted, what kind of life I actually believed in now. A few weeks ago, I drove past the old neighborhood. I didn't plan to, it just happened while I was on the way to a job. I slowed down when I saw the house, the yard still neat, the same curtains still hanging in the windows. For a second, I wondered if she was inside, if she'd notice my truck if she happened to glance out. I didn't stop. I didn't take a picture or try to remember how it used to feel living there. I kept driving. That place wasn't mine anymore, and honestly, I didn't want it to be. People talk about forgiveness like it's some big emotional milestone, like it comes with a wave of understanding or some moment of clarity. I don't feel that way. I don't forgive Amanda for what she did, but I don't hate her anymore either. I don't wish her pain or failure or even loneliness. I just don't care what happens to her now. She can move on, rebuild, repeat her mistakes, or grow into someone better. That's not my story anymore. My story is mine again, and for the first time in years, that feels right. I go to bed now without looking over my shoulder. I wake up without questions. My tools are organized, my calendar's full, and my fridge always has the stuff I like. I've got a gym bag in the corner I actually use now, and a dog I picked up from a shelter 2 towns over who doesn't care about anything except walks and treats. Life's simple again. Not perfect, not exciting, but honest. That's all I wanted. No more pretending. No more lies. Just real, quiet, steady days where I get to be myself. That's what I learned from all of this. You can't force people to be loyal. You can't talk someone into valuing you. And you can't stay in something broken just because you spent time building it. You have to walk away when it stops being real. You have to leave when the truth starts costing more than the lie. And when you do, you get your life back. Not all at once, not like flipping a switch, but slowly, in pieces, until one day you look around and realize you're finally free.